There we go. It should be feeding. All right, so if you see this, we're getting ready to do a home buyer seminar. I'm super excited and blessed to have my one of my preferred lenders, Clay. So sorry guys, I'm just gonna go ahead and plug this computer up because we don't want to run out of juice. Thankfully, I don't have to pay for the electricity on this one. Everybody got gas this morning? So if you have an electric car, I am super duper jealous of you. I don't, and so here we are dealing with this. Yeah, I'll move this back a little bit more. Perfect. Teamwork. So listen, let's just kind of quickly talk about the market. And so this is a home buyer seminar. So if you're currently renting, let me just start off by saying it's time to pull the trigger. Okay, and we're going to talk today about why you should pull the trigger. I am going to be sharing a lot of information about the steps to home buying, why you should buy, the benefits of it. And then Clay, the money man, is going to talk a little bit about, you know, what you need to do to get prepared and ready. So we'll have a great conversations today in regards to that. Let me just double check to make sure. Can somebody go and do me a favor? Find me on Facebook and double check if I'm feeding in. If I'm feeding in, am I feeding in? All right. I'm gonna pop open our, is this not what we normally do? Should be my personal, Natalie, VUORIAHO. Wariaho.
I don't see anything.
Okay. It's recording somewhere. Let's see where it is. Close that out. I'm so not tech savvy. You stream on Facebook. Where is it feeding to? Freddie. Ha! One of my clients, is this free? I want a house. I need some money. I love it. You're already under contract. What are we talking about? Let's not. All right. It looks like we should be feeding out live. You don't see it?
It might be to your friends only. Is it public?
Everything I do is normally public. So let's go. Let's just shut it off right quick. Stop live stream.
Well, somebody was saying it.
Yeah, no, that's my buddy. He's the funniest. He'll call me and he'll go, I need a good deal. I got $5, buy a house. So, all right, so I'm gonna try this again. I'm so not tech savvy, and I feel like the older I get, the worse it gets. Is that possible?
I think you're being hard on yourself.
I appreciate you, Clay. I appreciate you, Clay. All right. Should be feeding now. You telling me you don't see it? Oh, I'm on. I see it. All right, I'm on. So we're gonna rock and roll. So if it's just for my friends, it'll be for my 4,785 friends that are on Facebook. I'm just kidding. It's somewhere close to 5,000, but we're gonna rock and roll. So hey guys, Natalie Bordeaux here with Keller Williams and Bordeaux Real Estate Group. We're gonna go ahead and start our home buyer seminar. And really we wanna make sure that you get all the information from reliable sources to ensure that you are making the right decisions when it comes to purchasing your first home. That's not plugged in. I mean, like it's not getting juice. I just realized that. Oh, maybe because it's not, that's not it. All right. So let me go and share. Let's go to Zoom and share screen. Yep, you heard the thing. You heard the thing, you heard the thing. All right, play from the start. So welcome, 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 welcome. Here we go. Okay, so now we're official. So guys, thank you so much for joining us today. We're gonna have conversations when it comes to buying a home buying seminar. This is what it is for. So I'm Natalie Bordejo, and I am a realtor here at Keller Williams Buckhead. I'm the owner of Bordejo Real Estate Group, and my big why I do real estate really is about helping people build wealth via real estate. So I feel like I'm kind of like a financial advisor, except just about real estate. So don't call me about your 401ks. I'm not the one, unless you want to take money out of your 401k to buy a house. So today we're going to talk about what are the benefits of owning a home, right? And Clay's coming up. Don't be a stranger. Come on up here. Owning a home. We're going to talk about the steps to home buying. There's Clay. And then we're going to actually have conversations about the market. And then we'll open it up to any Q&A that you might have. So while Clay is talking, I'll look at if you have any questions, feel free to post them on social media, on Facebook, put them in there. As well as you can shoot me a DM if you don't want your question be seen, that is A-okay. And so we're gonna go ahead and rock and roll. So Clay.
Yes.
This is one of my preferred lenders. And the reason I say one of my preferred lenders, all my preferred lenders know and understand that they might not always have the same programs. So Clay will be the first one that when I send him business, if he can't do the loan for you, he'll tell you, hey, I can't, but call Natalie back. She might have a lender that can. So everybody doesn't operate the same. So a real good real estate agent should have multiple lenders that they can offer to you based on what you're looking for. For example, do you do down payment assistance programs?
We do not do down payment assistance program.
But I have a lender that does. But the reason I have Clay over here having these conversations is when I tell you he knows everything about FHA loans, conventional loans, VA loans. Like I swear he reads this stuff for breakfast. So Clay, introduce yourself to the crowd.
Hey, my name is Clay Jeffries. I'm a licensed mortgage lender. I've been doing this since 2006. Been working with Natalie for the last several years. And as she said, we do a lot of programs. We're not registered licensed to do down payment assistance programs, so we do pretty much everything else. And so I think Natalie's going to talk to us a little bit about the market. When I get to my time, we'll talk about money stuff. So Natalie.
Yeah. All right. So let's just start off by, actually, I'm going to squeeze the market in after we have talked about the benefits of that. And you know, Google could be your friend and it could be your enemy. Okay. Let's be real. Because I have had way too many conversations, for example, of people say they have to put 20% down. No, you don't, right? We're laughing because I think you get that question all the time, Clay, too, right? So we're going to talk about rent versus buy. I'm going to talk about you need to have a dream team. Nakia, you saw her in a previous flyer. She's one of my financial advisors. And I always talk to our clients about, you know, don't ask what you're pre-approved for as far as the max amount. You want to find out what is the monthly payment you're comfortable with, and you tell the lender that, and you make them back that number to what you're pre-approved for. Because what we don't ever want you to be house broke. That means when your friends are taking a trip, you can't go because you have this high mortgage, right? So we want to make sure you really have an understanding of budgeting. What is the amount that you have? Because there's other things that come with it, right? If you own a house. So are you putting money aside, for example, some future repairs? Right? Your air conditioning and heat might be higher. So you want to talk to a financial person when you're making a decision to buy to make sure that you have your numbers together and you know what you're comfortable paying. Okay. We'll talk about steps to home buying. We'll talk about some inspection items. So we'll talk about mortgage info and mortgage programs. Okay. So I'm going to start off by rent versus buy. First of all, how many of you are renting currently? Right. When you signed your lease last time, did your rent go up or down? It went up. As a matter of fact, rent in Atlanta has gone up 30% in the last 2 years. All right. So one thing you're pretty much guaranteed is your rent will go up. Well, the good news about when you buy is once you get into your mortgage and you have a fixed loan, your payment stays the same. The only time it goes up is if your taxes went up and your escrow goes up, but that's not gonna hopefully not be that much. So you know you for next 30 years, this is what your payment is gonna be. So it don't matter what inflation is doing, your payment is still the same. Because with inflation, your rent will go up, right? And right now, inflation is at 8.7%, something that all-time high, right? And you guys know I love stats and numbers, but yeah, 8.7%, I think the inflation numbers, latest one, right? So you want to make sure you understand that you are always going to write a check to have a roof over your head. And so why not write the check to a mortgage company so you ultimately own it? So let's talk about that. Sense of community and stability and security when you own your place. If you're renting in an apartment complex, there's consistently people going in and out. Why? They're consistently having leases turn over. When you live in a neighborhood, people tend to take care of that neighborhood more. You know the neighbor down the street. They look out for you. When you go out on a trip, you'll be like, hey, I'm going to be gone for a week. Keep an eye out on my house. Hey, somebody's out here. Did you call some movers? They over here taking all your stuff out of the house. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I got some stuff I'm selling, right? I mean, we don't want nosy neighbors really, but boy, we do want nosy neighbors because they look out for you, right? When you have packages, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you put the package in the back because I'm out of town? So you don't necessarily get that when you're in an apartment complex or you're renting somewhere. The other part too is like I talked about your mortgage payment. I started with that first. It's fixed. It stays there. Now, granted, there's different type of mortgages that they could change. But lately in today's market, majority of my lenders don't give that as an option. They want to make sure you have a fixed loan. As the interest rates go up, there's going to be some opportunities to maybe have different kind of loans, and your payment could change a little bit. But you want to have full transparency of what that looks like. And then you have an amazing tax deduction. Yes, United States of America is great for this. My parents live in Sweden, and their laws, tax benefits around owning home ownership is not like what we have. Yes, you get to write off the mortgage on your interest in your taxes. So you're getting a tax write-off. So that means less money paid to Uncle Sam. So here's another benefit that if you're renting, you don't get. You can actually make improvements to your property, and it helps build equity in your house. And if you got tired of that gray wall in your room, you can change it, right? You want to add some, shelves on the wall. You can put holes in the wall. There's your walls, right? So you can do all these different things to your property to add value to your property and make it your own. Why you pay every single time you make a payment, there's part of the payment that goes to pay down the actual loan. Well, that means you have equity in the house. The last few years, I think the numbers were last I saw, we've seen a huge increase in home prices in Atlanta, right? About 28%. So if you bought a house like 2 years ago, you're sitting on equity in your house, not because you've been for 2 years paying down your payment. Yes, you see that equity extra too, but because values in your neighborhood have gone up, you now have equity. Yeah, it's not cash in the bank, but it could be because you can do a home equity line of credit. It's basically getting your access to your equity that you have in the house. So if you have emergency, if you have some things you want to do, you can use that. And so those are the huge benefits. And by the way, FYI, if you have equity and you decide to cash out and sell your house, the laws here in the United States are amazing. If you have owned a house 2 out of the 5 years, you basically sell your house. Let's say you make $200,000 in profits. You don't pay capital gains taxes. You don't pay Uncle Sam. You get that money straight into your bank account. You don't have to actually pay no taxes on it. So when I tell you it's way better than stocks, if you're trying to build and make some extra cash, move into a house. I know somebody that sold a house every 2 years. They took that money, and then finally on the 3rd house, they went ahead and paid the house for cash and had a whole no mortgage at all. They just kind of play the system. And it's legal. There's nothing wrong with it. So here's another example of that, right? So you get to live there as long as you pay your mortgage. I always say at closing to my clients, listen guys, because they make you sign all the foreclosure paperwork and all. If you don't pay, I say, if you don't pay, you pay, you stay. If you don't pay, you don't stay, right? So as long as you make your mortgage, nobody can tell you have to get out. Like if you're renting a house, what if the seller decides to sell the house? Okay, well, you have to move out. Well, it's your house. You don't have to. As long as you pay, you stay. It's so very simple. So here's an example. And this was 2 years ago, where an average rent was $1,600 a month in Atlanta for a 2-bedroom. I think right now it's close to like $2,100 for an average 2-bedroom in Atlanta. Somebody do the math for me on that number, because I have $1,600. So in 1 year, you basically will give away $19,200. But we know it's now higher. So $2,100 So in 1 year, you're writing a check of $25,200. And you get no tax deductions. You're not building no proper equity. As a matter of fact, if you're renting somebody else's house, you're paying off their mortgage and you're building them equity. Okay, so just understand that. And it's really depressing when you start doing 5 years. I rented for like almost 10 years. So I probably gave away about $200,000 by doing that. And that's just the check I wrote. So I just wanted to show those numbers, but they're really depressing. So we're going to move forward. Okay. So what's your real estate dream team? Guys, everybody doesn't play the same field. They don't. Your real estate dream team is what's going to make the transaction or your whole experience of home buying easy. There are stuff that goes wrong. Like when I say there's crazy stuff that happens in real estate all the time. If you have a dream team, they find a solution to it so that you're not affected 9 times out of 10. So all the decision makers, so if the husband and wife, great, they're part of the team, right? The realtor should be your first call because your realtor will have amazing vendors like Clay, right? So you need to have a mortgage lender. We have to work together. And then you have your inspectors. You have contractors and then closing attorney's office, right? In Georgia, you have to close your real estate transactions at an attorney's office, right? And by the way, we're not like New York, so you have one attorney's office handling the whole transaction. You don't have 2 different ones. So that's the good news here. And so that's your real estate dream team. If you don't have a good dream team and things start falling apart, if you don't use my preferred lender and we start working together, it's going to be hard for me to pick up the phone to call them to come up with some solutions because we don't have history. And so we don't know how to solve those problems. And so working with my lenders, when something comes up, we're going to figure out the solution to it and we're going to make it happen because our ultimate goal is to make sure that you get into your dream home. And by the way, dream home doesn't mean your forever home. The dream home you want right now for this moment, right? Because it changes all the time. And so we want to make sure that you get in there. And that's ultimately the goal. Before I go into steps of home buying, I'm going to actually pause. I'm going to let Clay come up and talk about the loan process first, because let's be real. If you don't have the loan, none of the other home buying process really matters. So I'm going to jump and let him kind of have a conversations about that. And then I'll come back on what else we do. So I'm just going to bounce.
Skip ahead.
To
There we go.
finance. There we go.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here, both online and in person. So we'll talk about qualifying to purchase a home and the process, what that looks like. So when people call me, we go through lots of information. You never bought a home before. Basically, the information you need is about you, about where you live, and about where you've worked. And most loan officers, through no fault of their own, because they're trained to complete a loan application. And so they'll just say, how much money do you make? As opposed to asking you, how you make that money. Is it through more than one job? Are you self-employed? Are you 1099? Do you get most of your money through bonus or commissions? Those are the questions that we need to ask. But as we go through this pre-qualification, you can see on the slide here, it's simply, you tell me, you answer my questions, you tell me the information, and I believe you. And pull your credit, and then that's a pre-qualification. Pre-approval is the next step. And basically, you've told me this stuff, I believed you, but you also give me your if you say you make $90,000 a year, you give me your W-2s and your pay stubs to verify, yes, that is what you say. You told me you had $30,000 in the bank. You provide your bank statements to show me, yes, that is the money that you have. And so that is a pre-approval. The next step is a pre-underwrite. That is not on the screen, but that's essentially you give me everything that you would if you're applying for the loan, and we put you in front of an underwriter prior to you actually making an offer. It's what's called like a pre-underwritten approval. And that is the process there. One of the big myths, and really this should be a public service announcement that I say every day. I should have a t-shirt maybe that says it, but you don't need 20% down to buy a home. And you hear that all the time. And it's awful. And you see it, and it's not throwing CNN under the bus. I just saw an article CNN recently. That's what's coming to mind. But all the major news that they talk about, you need 20% down. And if you actually read the article, which most people don't, they just read the headline. But when you read the article down there, they'll say you can buy for less, but there's mortgage insurance. And mortgage insurance is actually not the worst thing in the world. Natalie and I have had conversations, and we talk, and we've done these seminars before, saying that if you actually wanted to buy, let's say, a $300,000 house and put 20% down, by the time it would take you to save that $60,000, your $300,000 house is probably worth $400,000. Or you can buy it today for less than 20% down, pay mortgage insurance, and actually get that equity as it goes from $300,000 to $400,000.
So Clay, question.
Yes.
So I have a house, I have PMI, and now I have so much equity. So some of you that bought 2 years ago, if you're still paying PMI, is there a way to get PMI off once you're already in the loan?
Yeah, so if you have a conventional loan, meaning not FHA, if you have a conventional loan, you can contact your loan servicer and ask them to remove PMI because it is not permanent. Unfortunately, if you have an FHA loan, it is permanent. It is for the life of the loan. And so there's nothing you can do with that except refinance, essentially paying off the loan and starting over. That's actually a little painful right now for people who got loans 2 years ago when interest rates were in the low threes, and now they're, in the fives. And so that's a little challenging. Let me skip forward to the next slide here. So when we talk about buying a home, we talk about the 4 C's: credit, capacity, capital, and collateral. I'm not going to spend a ton of time. I never do spending on collateral because that's the home, and the home has to be livable. So you can't have missing light fixtures, exposed wires, a bathroom that's been gutted and not replaced, missing flooring. Like, you can't have that.
Unless you do a renovation loan, 203K,
Yeah.
FHA.
And there are renovation loans, but those are not that common. Most people don't do those because, and the reason they don't, we've offered those in the past. I've done those in the past. And most of the people who do those, a lot of them don't close. And the example I try and give people is, imagine buying a home. Now imagine doing a renovation. Now imagine doing them simultaneously, and you can't actually make many changes to the renovation once you get it approved. And that is a little daunting, and it is, because I've been through that process. It can be daunting. But some of the stuff we look for: credit, is the minimum credit score requirement is 620 for FHA or conventional loans, at 620. We look at your assets. You don't need 20% down, as previously mentioned. You need 3% down for conventional, 3.5% down for FHA, and of course, VA loans are 100% financing if you qualify. But the big thing is, you don't have to have the 20% down payment. In this current market, as Natalie will probably mention, and I'm sure you've heard, the sellers can give you money toward your closing costs, but that's not as common right now because it's such a strong seller's market. The one thing the seller can never give you is money towards your down payment. So in a normal market, if you have the down payment, typically the seller can give you money to cover the rest. Right now, it's honestly a little challenging because sellers are not paying money for closing costs. So you have to have the down payment and closing costs yourself. But down payment wise, you don't need 20% to buy a $300,000 home. You could buy a $300,000 home with as little as $9,000 for the down payment. Capacity income, that's simply, how much money do you make, but also, really more importantly, how do you make that money? If you're self-employed, you need at least 1 full year tax returns, if not 2. If you are earning bonus and commission income, ideally you have 2-year history of it, but 1 full year history is confirmed. If you just started an hourly job and it's varying, you can't get a loan off the bat. If it's varying income, you have to have at least a 1-year history of varying income. We take the average. So how you make that money, if you're 1099, you're considered self-employed. So it's the same thing. You have to have at least a 1-year history of when you file your tax returns. So how you make your money, how you're paid, is actually more important than how much you make in terms of how you're underwritten. And so those are the 4 C's. And now I think somebody may be checking for questions. So if there are a question that comes up, please let me know. Yes.
With the 203K loans,
Yes.
It doesn't matter if the funds run out or something, like, why are they less ideal? If they're offered, shouldn't they have a favorable outlook?
Yeah. So it depends on the condition of the house. So one,
Yeah, you hit the mortgage part, I'll hit the other side.
right. But the quick thing on the condition of the house is, if it's a home that you want to renovate in this market, sellers are getting multiple offers, and they're not going to take a 203K because it's a longer close and it's a riskier loan to get to closing. If it's a home that no one's going to make an offer on because it's not in good shape, then that's a more appropriate, you can make an offer on it. But if it's, if it's cute and completely remodeled, then that's going to contract. It's not a renovation. But if it's one that just needs updating, it's still going to be getting lots of offers. So 203K is going to be more a rehab. Anything is going to be lower.
What would be the ideal market conditions to see a favorable 203?
Oh, well, that would be, you have your 6-month supply of inventory. So when you see a more normal, like 4 to 5 months at least, when you see a more normal inventory level, because we're still at what, 2 months?
We're less than 2 months. We're about 1 month. And let me just add, so your question is very valuable. And let me just jump in and say this. at the end of the day, the 203K loans are actually great at any point. The challenge is you have to have general contractors, because it has to be a general contract that actually runs the project.
And get it.
And in
gets
today's
approved.
market, because we have a shortage of laborers, contract workers and GCs, you know, it's a challenge not only getting somebody to show up and do the work, but then supply of like construction material is some back order and all this, and the cost is so high. So it's a little challenging doing a 203K now, unless you have an amazing realtor that has a GC that's going to show up on time and we get a good budget. Because like I did a 203K and my budget was 38% off. So if you're a first time home buyer, you don't have an extra cash and that happens, you might not be able to finish it out or get it done the way it needs to, that you said to the mortgage company that you need to get it done. So the challenge is really that side. It's not the loan, it's them getting the work done. Make sense?
And general contractors are so busy, they have to get approved by the lender for this, and why go through that hassle when you have so much business? So it's not trying to be discouraging. It's just, this is the reality of today. That doesn't mean it's going to be like this in a year or whatever, but that's right now.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
So credit score requirements, actually FHA is 620. That should be updated. The reason it's higher, VA is basically it's all 620. COVID pushed up those prices. There are probably lenders that do 580 again, but we personally do not do 580. The people we work with do not do 580 on government loans. Everyone's 620. I'm sure someone out there has gone back down to 580, but before COVID, almost everyone was at 580. Almost everyone. And now that's not the case. In fact, during COVID, there was a short time that almost everyone's at 680 for FHA, meaning you can have a lower credit score and get a conventional loan than FHA. That has changed, but it's not, the industry standard is not back to 580 yet, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Assets, I'll just skip directly to the one on the left here. Cash on hand is not acceptable. So if you have $5,000 sitting at home under a mattress or in a box somewhere, I can't use that money. And the reason I can't use that money is this, is that loan guidelines, regardless of conventional government, non-conforming, regardless of the type, I have to show that no one gave you as the buyer money that shouldn't have. So the seller didn't give you money to choose their home. Actually, now that's laughable, but that's the guideline. That Natalie didn't give you money to use her as a real estate agent, that I didn't give you money or whatever. And so if it's a $5,000 cash deposit, as an example, I can't show where cash came from. That's why large deposits like that can't be used. It's even if it's for your earnest money, you can't use cash. If you do have a lot of cash sitting at home, you can do what's known as seasoning the money. And that's basically where you deposit into a bank and let it sit for 60 days, and then you start the loan process. So it can be used, but if you're trying to make an offer on a home to close in, less than 30 days and it's sitting at home, that's not going to work. Things that you can use, tax refunds. That's one of the reasons I feel like the spring market is what it is people have cash coming in and they use that towards their purchase. Down payment assistance programs, those do exist. I don't have a ton of information on those. Natalie does know people who do. Gift funds, this is happening a lot, especially in this current market where people are buying homes before they sell their current home. So what they're doing is getting gifts from family members because all their equity may be tied up in their current house they haven't sold yet. You can also, additional things that's not on this, you can borrow money from your 401k. I tell people all the time, it's like, I don't think I need that money from our 401k. And I'm like, well, based on the way you phrase that, I would borrow it now before you close, because almost all 401ks have borrowing provisions when you're buying a primary residence. But once you bought it, those terms may be gone and you can't. So it's better to have the money and then say, you know what, I didn't need these, I can pay it right back, and go ahead and have it on hand. And also if you own a home and you have a home equity line on that home, you can use home equity line as the down payment on a house because it's secured funds. What you can't use, cash advance on a credit card, as an example. You can't, because it's unsecured funds. Let's see. And if I get any questions from Facebook or something, just interrupt me. Loan options, here are some stuff, and just skimming over this, all this looks, the conventional, which says 0 to 3% down on there. That's with zero's down payment assistance. Without down payment assistance, it's 3%. Conventional loans, let's see, yep, the PMI varies. Everything is, all that stuff is pretty good. And on the far side is seller contribution. So again, I'll come back to that. The seller can give you money to your closing costs, but currently many sellers are. I have seen sellers give money to closing costs after the inspection takes place, because maybe there's something on there and, you know, maybe something big, and the buyer says, look, this is going to cost 5,000. Can you give us 2? The reason a seller, even the strong sellers market, may be motivated to do that, even though they could say, I have a backup offer, is you never want to go back to market. So this is as a seller's point of view. You'd never want to go back to market because your backup offer could be under contract. And now you go, because normally, statistically, when you go back to market, you get less money. So if the buyer is asking for 1,000 or 2,000, usually try and find a way to make it work, because you're going to lose statistically less money giving up $1,000 than you would going back to market. One loan programs that are not listed on here, there's actually non-conforming loan programs. These are a lot of fun, and there's a lot of examples that I just don't want to bore everyone to tears with. But there are examples that are great for people who are self-employed or people looking for investment properties or second homes. And so if you have questions on those, I can certainly answer those, because I think our contact information has been shown, and we'll give it again later, and you can reach out to me on that. Let's see. Fees and payments, closing costs. So those are made up of like appraisal fees, underwriting fees, paying your first year homeowners insurance. I love that we have myth again, 20%. You don't need 20% down. And then your down payment. So closing costs, when you hear the phrase cash to close, that's basically everything. That's down payment plus closing costs plus setting up your escrow account plus paying your first year homeowners insurance. That's cash to close, means all that combined into one single number. On a monthly basis, if you make less than 20% down on most loan programs, there is mortgage insurance. There are conventional loan programs that will be advertised as a no mortgage insurance program. That is technically a lie. It's a marketing thing. What it really says is it's not a monthly mortgage insurance payment. If you make less than 20% down, there's always some form of PMI. So if there's not a monthly, what you're doing is agreeing to take a higher interest rate than what's available, and a one-time upfront fee is paid. So the rate's higher, and the higher rate pays for a one-time upfront mortgage insurance fee. So you don't have a monthly payment. But there's always PMI of some form if you put less than 20% down. Even on VA loans that are a no monthly mortgage insurance thing, there is an upfront mortgage insurance premium on VA loans. So usually there is mortgage insurance in some capacity if you're not putting 20% down. I mentioned the word escrow a moment ago. Let me come and unpack that a little bit, especially if you've never bought a home before. So an escrow account, think of it as a savings account to pay your taxes and your insurance. So each month, say your mortgage payment, which is the loan itself, is $1,000 a month, but your actual payment could be $1,250. That's because that extra $250 is going towards paying your taxes and your insurance each month. Basically, your total bill divided by 12 months. So how does this amount come up? It's simple. The county and or city may tell you how much your annual property taxes are, and your insurance company, Allstate, State Farm, Farmers, Geico, whoever you use, will tell you how much your bill is. So hypothetically, for easy math, let's say that your annual property taxes are $2,400 and your annual home insurance is $1,200. That's $3,600, $3,600. You divide that by 12 months. That's $300 a month. That's how your monthly escrow payment is determined. And then lastly, if you have HOA fees, homeowners association fees, you don't pay that with your mortgage payment. You're still qualified because you're required to make those payments. So you still get qualified to make that payment, but you don't send that to the lender. You send those directly to the HOA. And it doesn't matter if it's an annual HOA fee of $1,200. I still have to qualify you on a $100 a month payment, even if it is a one-time annual fee. Let's see. We're going to skip that because I've talked about a lot of those stuff. Here's some random stuff that may not be talked about often. If you've been out of the job, and this was actually a big deal during COVID, but when everything opened back up, people are now back. But if you've been out of work for 6 months or more, you have to be back on the job for up to 6 months, especially government loans are a hard number on that. Conventional loans, you don't necessarily have to. I've been able to help people say, look, by the time he's been back on the job for 4 months, by the time I get to closing, it's almost 6. And I've won those arguments if people have good credit scores and their low debt to income ratio, meaning they're not buying too much house. But if you've been out of the job, whether you're a stay-at-home mom or just out of work, if it's been more than 6 months, we've got to take a deeper look at that. Social Security.
Wait, before you go,
Yeah,
No, don't disappear.
I'm just moving out to
Look,
give you.
I come in hot. Okay, so listen, let's just also cover this. So I've had a couple of clients that during COVID, things kind of changed up and they went back to school to get a degree, another extra degree. So if you are, talk a little bit about if you're a college student and you come in straight out of there, you have an offer letter already for a new job when you get your master's or whatever, can you get a loan right away?
Yeah, so if you're in school, school counts as work. So the short answer is yes. So people who are just graduating from a university, whether it's undergrad or grad, that counts as work. So there's no being on the job for 6 months requirement. The requirement that could come into play is depending on your offer letter and how you're paid the money from your job. So if you're hourly or if it's a high commission job or whatever, that would impact. Whereas if you're W-2 salary, you can use all that stuff right away. Child support and alimony can be used. There has to be a 3-year continuance, meaning if your child is 17 or 18, you can't use the child support because they're not going to be receiving it for another 3 years. Social Security and disability income, that can be used once it's documented. It's very simple to use because once you get the awards letter, those things are typically good for life. And we just qualify you working it. There's not the three-year thing that we need to show. It is ideal to be in the same line of work for a while, but that's not necessarily a hard thing. What is a hard thing is if you're trying to use second jobs. If you're trying to use 2 jobs to qualify to buy a home, you have to be working both jobs simultaneously for 2 years. So if you have your full-time job and you've been at it for 20 years and you've got part-time, say you're teaching adjunct classes at a university or whatever, you have to be doing that for 2 years as well. So if you've only been doing it for a year, I can't use that additional income. So those are income things.
So I have a question about the debt to income ratio.
Mhm.
What's an ideal debt to income ratio, and is it a matter of like having a low number? Like I know it's like your rent and your debt that's assessed. How do I determine which?
Right. I'm smiling because the very next slide was debt to income ratio. So debt to income ratio. It's a great transition question. So what that means, DTI or debt to income ratio, what that means is there's 2 numbers. The first is the housing one. And so that's the housing payment. So the loan plus taxes, insurance, and if applicable, HOA fees. Take that number and divide it by your gross, not your net, your gross monthly income. And then that's the number. On conventional loans, it can go up to the limit, which is 50%. On FHA loans, it basically can't go past 40. So it needs to be like 39.99, basically. Okay. And then the total debt is everything. And so I don't mean like your water bill. I mean, student loans, credit card payments, unsecured loans, whatever shows up on your credit report, car loans or whatever, all those things plus the housing payment. And then if you have to pay child support or alimony, that's thrown in that too. If you have a IRS tax payment plan, you can still qualify to buy a home, but that monthly tax payment plan is thrown in that too. So it's all your documentable debt that's not buying groceries or car insurance and things like that, divided by your gross income. So to answer your question about the numbers, the limit for FHA is around 55%. Conventional is 50. And when I say 50, I mean like 49.9. It can't go past that. But the way conventional works is both your ratios can be 49. I had someone who's self-employed. He had no other debt, and so his total number for his house and his total debt was the same number, and it was like 49.8, and he qualified as long as it wasn't over it. Now FHA, the back ratio can be about 55, but the front needs to be below 40.
What about for miscellaneous expenses? I have braces, so like where would you?
That unless you're financing those and it shows up in your credit report, that doesn't come into it.
And what would determine this finance?
Well, that would be like, in your example, does your dentist say, hey, you're going to finance this like at a furniture store? It's like, no, same as cash for 18 months or whatever, but because that goes on your credit report. So if it's something like that, it is what it would. And then debt to income ratio does not impact your interest rate. Okay. I haven't talked about that yet. So it doesn't matter if your debt to income ratio is 19% or 9% or 49%. That's not impacting your interest rate. Okay. And the other way that works is really once you're in the box, it doesn't matter if you think shipping, doesn't matter if Amazon picks a box that's too big or too small. If you fit in the box, you're in the box. So again, if it's 19% or 49%, it doesn't really matter. Okay. Your interest rate is actually determined really by two things: your credit score, and it's mainly your credit score, but also your down payment. But especially if your credit score is over 740, the rate's the same whether you're putting 5% down or 25% down. The rate really doesn't change. If your credit score is not great, but you're putting 40% down, then your interest rate's the same if your credit score is over 660 if someone has perfect credit, if you're making that large of a down payment. The variance is if your credit score is 660 and you're only putting 10% down, you're going to have a much different rate than someone who's at 740 and putting 10% down. So larger down payments can offset lower credit scores. Yes, sir.
So do you guys use loan points to try to pay down your interest rate?
Yeah, you can, but that becomes a different topic because if you pay like a discount point, let me back up. If your credit score is say perfect and your credit score is 660, the difference in rate is going to be pretty substantial. It's going to be like a half a point or more. Okay. Paying a discount point is not going to make up that gap. Paying the discount point will lower the rate an eighth or a quarter point. It's not going to make up that whole gap. So yes, you can pay discount points. You can buy down the rate. Absolutely. But it's going to take more than 1% to make up that whole gap. So if you're just wanting 1 point, you're not going to make that up. And I'm getting close to the end of my slides. So I just skipped ahead and talked about that next slide about the debt to income ratio and how to calculate it. So we talked about that, and then down payment assistance programs. We can do down payment assistance programs, and we're not registered to do any of them. So we can work with them. There are lots of them, as there's some options on the left side of this slide. But they change all the time. Their funding can run out. Some are geographic restricted. Some are income restricted, asset restricted. Some are you have to be a teacher, nurse, police officer or whatever. So there's lots of stuff out there. So if you want, what I tell clients who ask me about down payment assistance programs is choose the program that you want, send it to me. If we can work with it, great. If not, I'll tell you before we even start the process, so you're not wasting your time.
So would you consider USDA loan down?
No, that's just 100% financing loan.
Okay.
But you got to be way outside of where we are right now to get USDA, because
That
that's
means you gotta be in the car for about 45 minutes to an hour to get out. 'Cause you have
Minimum.
to be in a rural area.
yeah, it's way out there. So, but that's just 100% financing loan like VA is.
Okay.
And so. Say, Natalie, I think I am done with my slides, so I'll give it back to
Are you
you.
done with your slides?
I'm done with my
Well,
slides.
hey, party people, I got some good news. Meanwhile, I'm over here inputting a listing and we're about to go live. So yes, we have 2 new moderns coming up. And so when we're talking about the market and what's happening, yes, there's inventory out there. And I know you've heard stories, guys, before we can go into, the steps to home buying. So let me just touch on the market. First of all, we don't have a crystal ball. Do you hear me? We don't really know what's going to happen, but history leaves clues. What that means is, at the end of the day, if you're renting, it's still a good time to buy. It doesn't matter what the market is doing, because remember I talked about the fact that you're just writing a check and give me your money away, right? And so it's still a good time to buy. Good news for your buyers is the market is starting to shift. What does that mean? Shift does not mean crash. History leaves clues, okay? Even with high inflation, we normally see a 4% increase in home prices every year. That's normally what we see. Recently, we're seeing 28+%, right? And so, yes, I know some of you feel like, well, I don't want to overpay for my house. Well, if you wait for a year, you gave away $24,000. Right? You got no tax write-off. So the swing could be $30,000. In addition to that, is we're expecting house prices to still continue to rise this year. We're seeing more inventory hit the market. So instead of having, 50 offers on this one house, we might only see 5 offers. Now, when we list homes, we used to list them at the top price of the neighborhood. Agents that are experienced now are not listing at the top to push it because the market is shifting. Shift just means change. So let me just touch on why I don't believe, and I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm still looking for properties for me to buy in this market. The reason I don't feel like we're going to go into a crash is very simple. When we had the housing crash last time, there were two leading factors in my opinion. You know, you can go and put on there your opinion too, that's fine. My opinion was there was a lot of predatory lending. What does that mean? Well, in 2002, I got pre-approved for a loan with interest only up to almost $500,000. Thankfully, I had enough like just knowing that I don't want to have that monthly payment. I went and bought a house for $170,000. This is the kicker. They never checked if I had a job. I wrote a letter saying that, hey, guess what? I'm going to be working in the city. I lived in South Carolina at the time, and I bought a house in Charlotte, North Carolina. I gave them $500 for a down payment. They gave me $10,000 worth of Sears gift cards when I closed, and they gave me money towards my down payment. I paid $500 to buy my first house. Right? And so there was so you see my point here, guys? I went to the mall to buy a watch. That was my $500. Instead, I bought a house. They had a little cubicle for the new builds in there, and I walked in there and I walked out with a house. It took 9 months for it to be built. But you see, that's what was happening. He talked about all the different loan programs. It is hard to get qualified for a loan now. It's not like back in the day. You just wrote it like, I'm going to make $580,000 a year, right? It's not that way. So we don't have the crazy lending practices that they were just giving loans away. The other reason too is we have more checks and balances. So back then, the lender would be like, hey, Mr. Appraiser, while they're playing golf, I have this new buyer and his house is worth $500,000. Can you do an appraisal on it? It's $500,000 while they're over there swinging the golf balls and having a beer. Well, he went and wrote that it's $500,000, but it was never worth $500,000. So basically they were giving values for homes that weren't really worth that. And so when their balloon payments, the interest only payments were coming up, they went to go refi. They couldn't refi because the house was never worth $500,000. And now people started putting their houses on the market and couldn't sell them. Now you have a supply, like you have so much supply and not enough buyers. And then we hit the recession. And so there's so many other things that happen. It's harder to get a loan now. If you're self-employed like myself, man, you got to show them all kinds of stuff. 2 years worth of tax returns. They want to check your bank account. I feel like they want my kids' birth certificates. Like, do you want me to sign off my kid to you to get a loan, right? And so I say all that to say, I don't feel like we're going to have a crash in the market. Is the economy going to be affected? Yes. But the one thing that's going to remain the same, guys, is we are still going to always need a house. We need somewhere to live. And so to me, it's still a great time to buy a house, okay? So that's kind of a little bit about the market. And yes, I do have, just a quick plug though, I have 4 listings right now. One is a $375,000 beautiful 2017 renovated home over in Pine Lake, which is the smallest city in Georgia. Let me know if you're interested. It's $375,000. What's a monthly mortgage on about $375,000, roughly? I'm putting him in a spot. All right. Then I have brand new moderns over in Pittsburgh, like down the street from the old Braves Stadium. We're launching them right now, $650,000. As a matter of fact, come tomorrow, shoot me in a DM. We'll have an open house there tomorrow, 1 to 4. The builder is amazing. They have done an amazing job on this house. And then we listed another house at $390,000, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths in a gated community in Marietta. And so that's what we got right now. So if you were thinking about buying, give me a call, connect you with Clay, get you a loan. Let's get you in a house. Hey. You know, I make it sound really easy. So let's talk about the process, right? It really is that easy, guys. It really is. It's not hard to get a house. It's just you have to start the process. And the first process is talking to a realtor like myself. The second process is, and I have the steps to home buying here. It's kind of a nice little chart, guys. And if you want this, you want me to DM you with this information, I have that, a whole home buying guide, you know, talks about the process as well. Be more than happy to send that to you. So let's talk about it. When you choose a real estate agent, and I'm going to put this out there, we have had, you know, the Great Resignation it has been a real thing. And I think everybody that did the Great Resignation, they all became real estate agents. Yeah. Just about. We have a lot of new agents, which I love it. That's great. But the reality of it is you want to make sure that you're interviewing a real estate agent you're thinking about hiring, and you want to find out these things. Hey, are they full-time? Because if they part-time in it, do you really want somebody to help you with your biggest transaction in your life? And they're just part-timing this thing? Probably not. You want to find out what broker they're with. I'm with Keller Williams, where we have like support out of the wazoo. Like if I have a question about legal, I have somebody I can call. If I need advice about, you know, how to negotiate. I have that. I just went under contract on a property, and honestly, it was because of the fact that we have a relationship with each other. She's not at the brokerage, but I know her from when she was in my brokerage. Keller Williams has a great backing. And so, you know, we're always about finding a win-win, and me and that agent work together to ensure that we got our buyers under contract. By the way, I just got them under contract. Yay. So that's what I was doing over there while Clay was doing it. So it's been a lot of negotiation the last 2 days, but we got it done. We find a win-win for everybody. What you also want to know is, do they have preferred vendors? Like, your real estate agent is not really there. And you don't hire me to find the properties that are listed. You can find them yourself, because Zillow and Realtor.com will get the same information if it's a listed property. So why do you need me? You need me because I bring you preferred vendors like Clay to get you to the closing table. You need me because I have an amazing network of other KW agents and other agents and brokers around here that tell me off-market properties like they're coming soon. So instead of going and fighting for that same house, I might find some off-market properties. I work with a lot of investors, and even the investors that I don't have the listings, I know where they build, where they're doing stuff. So if I have a buyer and you want to be in, you know, Pittsburgh, West End, you want to go in Marietta, I know agents that work with investors over there, and I'm gonna call them and say, hey, do you have anything coming up? That's the off-market properties. That's what you need an agent for. You want somebody who has experience. Why? You can write offers left and right. If they don't write solid offers and don't know what today's market is doing, they can't advise and guide you. You don't have the right agent. So you want somebody that has experience. And honestly, guys, there's some amazing new agents. I mean, they're sharp. Like, I'm teaching in my office right now. We're teaching Ignite, and I told my team leader the other day, I said, man, we got some sharp ones in here, right? And they might not have the experience because they're new agent, but guess what? They do have the experience because they have the backing of the broker and agents that will help and support them. So when I say experience, doesn't mean how long they've been licensed, because I know agents that may have been licensed for 15 years, but they've only done 20 transactions. Then you have another agent who might be licensed 2 years and they've done 80 transactions. Which one do you think has the most experience? So don't always ask how long they've been licensed. Ask them how many transactions have you had? For every transaction we learn. And so that gives us the experience to be able to guide you and walk you through the process. And that's really what a real estate agent does for you, okay? So the first thing you want to do is find a good real estate agent. And by the way, if you're watching this, because I know I have friends all over the United States, even in Sweden and all the other parts of the world, if you are in another state and you know, I'm only licensed in Georgia, I stay in my lane. I don't want to get a license in Dominican Republic like a lot of people are doing. If I have a client that wants to buy a Dominican, I'm going to refer the business out. With that said, I have an agency, relationships with agents all around the world and in the United States. If I refer you to somebody, that means they're going to take care of you. And if they don't, I'm going to get involved and have those conversations. So if you're considering home buying, make me be the first call so that you're working with the right person. Even if it's not in the city, I'll refer you out. Okay. So you need, the second part is then you have to connect with the lender. Because what we're not going to do is go window shopping, guys. So let me tell you a quick story. When I decided to buy a car, right, I kind of knew what my budget was. So that budget put me in a certain car brands only. If I did not know my budget and I would have went to what car I really wanted and went and test drove the Porsche Macan and the Mercedes or the Bentley, and then had to go into the GMC that I actually ended up buying, do you think the GMC would have felt good to me anymore? No, that's why we don't go window shopping, because we don't want you looking at $500,000 houses if you're pre-approved for $350,000. Because when you now set your mind up, oh my God, I want this house with the pool, with the basement, with the da-da-da, and then you find out your budget is $350,000, no other house is gonna show and make you feel the same way. So we don't go window shopping, guys. We wanna know exactly what am I qualified for, and we only go look at those houses, okay? So what's the difference between approval and pre-approval? I try not to work with just pre-approvals, like the basics. I'm sorry, pre-qualified, right? Pre-qualifications are basically fake. That's how I look at it. A pre-approval means they looked at your information. So you can go on these, if you Google mortgages, I want a mortgage, you'll have all these companies. I'm not going to bash their name. Just if you do it, you'll see them there in the top of them because they pay all that money. And you can basically go in there and put all your information. They send you a what is it? Pre-qualification. See, I don't even use them, so I don't even know what they're called anymore. Pre-qualification letter, but they've never checked your data. They may have pulled the credit report, but they haven't checked your bank accounts, your pay stubs or anything like that. So you're not really pre-approved. And so we want to make sure that you're truly pre-approved. And most of my lenders will even run you maybe potentially through the underwriting. So we have full approval. We just need to find a house to match it up with. And in today's market, I'd rather you do that. So we have total transparency. Now, I have a relationship with Zillow. It's a love and hate, guys. I love it because my clients get to look at houses on Zillow and Realtor.com, and we have a KW app. You can use that as well. I'll be more than happy to send that to you. But this is why I don't like them. They lie. That Zestimate is not real estimate of the house value. It's an algorithm that they failed on. They stopped buying houses because they used their algorithm and realized this was not a sustainable model because they were overpaying for houses. And even the owner of Zillow had his Zestimate incorrectly when he sold his house. So that's pretty funny, right? Like, hello? This is why I don't like them. They will tell you what your monthly payment is going to be. That's with 20% down. They don't add the PMI, the principal mortgage insurance that Clay just talked about, which most people have. They don't have the tax amount on there, and there's no homeowner's insurance. So that whole thing that says, oh, $1,500 might actually be $2,300 a month. So don't look at that and go, oh, well, I'm paying $1,500 in rent right now. Oh, I can afford a $400,000 house. That's not how we work. So we want to make sure that you get real numbers, real information from a lender so you know exactly what to do and what we need to go look at. Okay. All right. So I do not, this is just me. If you want to go look at houses and you're ready to buy, I don't take you out to look at houses until we have two things. A buyer's consultation, because I want to make sure we have total clarity on what is it that you are going to want and what is it that you need. I talk about in terms of your non-negotiables. If you're a first-time home buyer, remember an average first-time home buyer stays in the house about 5 to 7 years. It's not going to be your dream house, but I need to know what is your exit plan of the house. Are you planning on, see, I told you I was going to be a wealth builder for you when it comes to real estate. So are you going to want to keep that house and rent it out and have that into your, start your real estate portfolio? If that's the case, we need to look at homes in places where you're allowed to rent it out. Or you may be thinking about, I'm going to move there and I want to buy something and I want to Airbnb it. Well, we might not want to be in a subdivision because they don't allow short-term rentals. So we need to have real conversations about your wants and needs. And if you say to me, oh, well, Natalie, I want hardwood floors, I want a fenced yard, we're not making that be a non-negotiable because guess what? You can add a fence and you can change the floors. But if the rest of the house is amazing, are we really going to walk away from it because it doesn't have a fence? Probably not. But you know what we are going to do is you can't change the location. So we're going to talk about what location, what kind of home types there are, condos, townhouses, you got single family homes. And then we're going to talk about your timeline as well. And then we're going to find the non-negotiables. It's kind of like when you dated, you're like, well, I don't want these things from the person I want to date. Same thing with the house. So if you tell me, you know what, Natalie, I'm a single woman. I want to make sure I have a garage because I want to feel safe and I want to be able to pull my car in there, close the garage door, and it's important to me. Well, we're not going to go look at houses that don't have garages if that's your non-negotiable. Because what I don't want to do is we go in there and we look at the house, you love the house, but doesn't have the things you want. And then I check on you 3 months later, how is your house? And you're like, oh, I hate the fact that when it rains, I don't have a garage and I come home from work late at night, right? So we want to make sure we have all of that. We talk about your expectations, we talk about the market, and then we start looking at properties. The other time too is you're going to have a buyer brokerage agreement that you're going to sign with me. That tells me that you and I are going to work together. I now have the right based on Georgia law to advise you about real estate, not just in general terms like I'm doing now, but about specific properties and tell you what I think the value of the property is and things of that nature. It gives me a fiduciary duty to you to make sure that your needs are always there, always taken care of. So it's really cool, but I don't take buyer out unless we have a buyer brokerage agreement. That agreement also allows me to then tell the seller or the listing agent that, hey, I'm earning a commission on that, okay? So I don't take people out unless you have a buyer consultation, pre-approval, and a BBA with me. If you're working with a realtor and they did not do a buyer's consultation, I will tell you right now, that's a warning sign. Because now they're letting you lead the search of the house when they're supposed to be the expert and explain things to you. And if you're the one just clicking on Zillow and they're not really asking you and guiding you, you might want to rethink that relationship. All right, so then what we do, we view properties. So, all right, where do we find properties? So we have two listing services here in Georgia. I know we're so lucky we have two. Crazy. FMLS and Georgia MLS. And both of those feed into Realtor.com and Zillow, right? And so when the new listing hits, you're probably going to see it before I do. But I'm going to be looking for the other stuff. So you're going to see the stuff that hits the market. You're going to send me listings too. I send you stuff too. But then I'm going out there and I'm looking for sale by owners. I'm going to look for off-market properties. If you want to be in the neighborhood where your friend lives and there's no properties right now, we'll go door knock and we'll put these on there. Basically, we have buyers that are looking to buy in your neighborhood. Do you know anybody selling? We send letters out saying, hey, we have a pre-approved buyer. This is why you should call me, because you don't have to worry about, putting it on the market, go through all that. So these are the things that we do. And so while we view properties, we normally don't view more than 5 properties at a time. Okay. And the reason we don't view more than 5 properties at a time is because it's kind of like going shopping for a dress or a suit, guys, or shoes, right? You go to 10, 15 stores, you can't remember which store had what. So we really narrow it down. We don't just go in and out just looking at properties. We make sure we look at all the properties that really hit what it is that you want, what it is that you need, and it fits your non-negotiables. And we're here to guide you throughout the process as well. So what happens once we find something? We write an offer. 3 things can happen. They accept the offer the way the terms are. And that does not mean you're overpaid, guys. That just means that the listing agent and the buyer's agent probably had some conversations in advance about what's important for the seller and already kind of started negotiating a little bit. So when we wrote the offer, it was a clean offer. They accepted it the way it is. Great. That's an accepted offer. You go under contract. Most of the time, sometimes the seller could reject the offer. Give you an example. House is 500,000. You put an offer at 250. The seller is not even going to counter on it. They're pissed off. You insulted them, right? And so they might reject the offer. Counter offer is what happens most of the time. That means that there are some terms of the offer that the seller did not agree with, and they're going to send you a counter offer. You can counter a counter. We just did earlier. All right. By far the most common is the counter offer. And it's really trying to find what's important for the seller, what's important for the buyer, and find a middle ground that works for both of them. That works for both of them to make sure that we can go under contract. So our experience in negotiating and skills is really powerful. And it always has the fiduciary duty of my buyer. I don't care if I know the agent on the other end. It's my fiduciary duty to my buyer to get my buyer to what they want. I'm never going to push you to, oh, you should do this, you should that. I give you all your options, and then it's up to you to make the decision. So then once we go under contract, we go binding. We have a couple of things that's going to happen. So you have due diligence period. That's when we actually go and do an inspection. We do the survey. If there's a test for mold or radon, we remove any contingencies that might be there. That's the due diligence period. That means your earnest money that you gave up, which normally is about 1% in our market, right? Your earnest money is protected. And so if during the due diligence period, if we find out an inspection that there's a bunch of foundational issues, right, and we don't want to move forward, we terminate the contract, you get your earnest money back. Meanwhile, the lender starts taking everything to underwriting. He talked about that earlier. And once we finish the due diligence period and we move forward, they'll order the appraisal. Remember I talked about the crash before and appraisals were buddy-buddy with the lenders? Clay, can you talk to an appraiser?
I don't even know an appraiser anymore.
There you go. That's because they changed up the law on that. Now there's a third-party appraisal management company, AMC. The lender pushes the order of the appraisal there. That company gets it and sends it to a random appraiser. There's no communication between the buyer, the agent, the buyer, the mortgage company, and the appraiser anymore. All the communication has to be in writing and through the AMC. So that means if they play golf together and hang out and smoke cigars, As a matter of fact, Clay said, I don't even know any appraisers anymore. Back in the day, I'm sure he did because, that's just how it was. So that's why I feel much better of like when you go under contract, the appraisers are truly what they are. So, yes. No, it's different. And so due diligence period just depends. It really comes down to making sure that you have the inspector ready to go. So when I put due diligence period on there, I try to make it as quick as possible because that makes the offer more stronger. So like before I put an offer in, I literally would call my inspectors like, hey, if I put an offer in today, when can you come out? But we went under contract an hour ago. My inspector is like, I can go out today for you, Natalie. Right? And then I call them and they're like, well, that won't work. They have a pool party in the backyard. Okay, well, we'll just do Sunday, Monday. right? So you want to kind of have a good relationship with the vendors to make sure that they're on standby and ready to go. Sometimes they will pencil me in if I know that we're pretty close to going under contract. I want an inspector out there the next day, if not, within the first 2 days. That's why I can do 3-day due diligence. If you don't have that, then you need to make sure that you have a longer one, okay? And then let me just touch on this. So when you deal with your lender like Clay, his job is to put together a nice little package with a big bow with all your documentation and send it to underwriters. So that's when you tell them all your skeletons in the closet about your finances and stuff. You're just upfront with them. His job is to make sure he can advise you on that. And then it goes to underwriting. Underwriter's job to me is to break down the file and see if there's any issues there, right? Because they're risk management. They want to make sure that you're truly going to be able to pay back the loan, okay? And so he's your friend right here. You tell him everything. And then when we go under contract, he puts the nice little package in a bow and then sends it to underwriting.
And on that note, it's much easier to know a problem up front and address it because that way an underwriter doesn't think you're trying to hide something. So if there is an issue, I'll actually put together a letter and explain, this is what happened, this is where we are, this is the solution, or whatever the case may be, and give it to the underwriter up front as essentially a cover letter on the file, so that one, they don't misinterpret something, or where they think it's nefarious or not. But anyway, it's way better to address it before an underwriter asks about it, because if they think you're hiding something, and then it's an uphill battle, even if you're not. Turn it back
What's
over.
the lowest level of income you work with, Clay, in terms of getting approved for a loan and like just documenting income?
So the question was, what's the lowest amount of income that you've worked with to approve a loan?
Right. I mean, you need to be making around 50,000 at least right now, just because of where purchase prices are. So when I started the mortgage industry, people could do, making $2,500 a month, $2,000 a month, but those price points don't really exist anymore. If that makes sense. So it's not me trying to be, I don't know, discriminatory or whatever. It's just the reality of where home values are.
And let me also add this. Somebody making $200,000 a year and somebody making $50,000 a year, the 200,000 might have so much debt, the debt to income ratio, that they can't even qualify for the same amount that the $50,000 salary does with no debt. So there's not. So what I'm saying to you is everybody's situation is different. If your friend got 100% finance and you wanted to, well, you didn't go to the military. He had a VA loan. You got a regular conventional loan, right? So don't listen to your friends, because your credit score, your friend's credit score, their job and your job is totally different. So and let me also touch on this. I know some of you on Facebook, you guys are credit repair people. Well, that's great. That's awesome. I will not send my clients to you. I adore you, but not when it comes to them want to get approved for a loan. Why? There's a credit score that the lenders look at, and there's an algorithm for that. And if you do, try to do credit repair and add the rent lines and all the extra lines, trade lines, whatever on it, might not work to get that score up. And so if you want to get pre-approved, even if your lease is up in a year, you want to get with a lender. And then I don't know if you're able to do that, Clay, but I know some of my lenders do. So if they say, no, you can't get pre-approved right now, then run you through this credit scoring system and they tell you, but if you do these things, we can approve you. So if you're kind of, I'm not sure, at least start the process and get the plan together of what you need to do to be ready. So the hardest part when you first buy your first house is you're scared to hear no, but it's not no forever. It's no, not right now. And here's the plan. Do these things, and in 6 months, we'll get you in the house. So let's just start with the plan and have the right conversations. So when we go binding, the lender starts working through the underwriting and appraisal, and then the attorney's office start doing title searches and start gathering together documents to get ready for closing. So let's talk about an inspection. Again, all inspectors are not the same. I have seen some horrible inspections on some of my listings. They send me the inspection report with the repair request, and I look through it and I went, holy crap. Did they even look at the house? Right? So it's important that, it's kind of like a mechanic. You get what you pay for. So if an inspector is like, oh, it's $200, and they're just going to walk through the house and they're like, okay, it's good. That's an issue, right? So an average inspection costs about, let's just say $500 to $600 right now, right? But if you do a radon test, mold test, those things add up. But guys, would you go and buy a used car without having somebody take a look at the engine? Right? They may have done all this body work, but the inside of the car and the frame of the car is broken. And your car looks nice, but you get, it's not safe. Same thing with a house, right? So everything is negotiable and everything can be fixed. We have a lot of mold in Atlanta because of our weather. Most crawl spaces have mold. If it's not sealed, it might come up in a house. I am highly allergic to mold. I will walk in a house. The reason I sound like this, I went to look at a house the other day and there's mold in it, and I've been congested ever since. And so, mold is something that could be remediated, so it's not a big deal. You don't walk away from that, right? But if we find out there's foundational issues, and that might not be something you want to buy a house with a foundational problem, right? So don't be overwhelmed when you get the report. It's a lot of items. We actually send them the report. We say, hey, these are the things we want you to fix. And normally we focus on big ticket items, safety and security items. That's what we ask for. So we're not gonna be like, oh, there's a scratch on the wall. Now, if it's a brand new construction, there should be no scratch on the wall. It should be perfect, right? And so yes, brand new construction, I still ask for my clients to do an inspection. Why? Because their job, and they have inspections with the city to get the certificate of occupancy CO. So they have a permit to build a house, and they have all these checks that they have to come, and the inspectors come and look at it. But they're only looking to make sure that it's above the standard of what their standards are. We want to make sure that it's perfect. And so that's what we always ask for an inspection still done. So no, okay, so great question. Is inspection part of the closing costs? No. You don't get money back, like, earnest money, right? So if you have $5,000 in earnest money, and now the closing costs and everything else totals to be $20,000, you already gave $5,000. We take the check of the $5,000 to it, so you only have to wire $15,000, okay? Earnest money, you don't get that. Inspection, you don't get that back. You pay directly to the inspector, and that won't even show up on any report that you do, okay? That's just you kind of doing your research to make sure the house that you're buying, you're clear on what it is. And let me also add this. I always recommend that my buyers get a home warranty, because when you move into a house, things tend to go wrong the first year you're there. Because if you have a family of 8 and the person that lived there before was one person, and now your kids over there doing what my kids used to do, up and down on that doggone AC. I put it at 68, they put it down at 57, right? They're freezing out my my HVAC system and just blowing it up. And so sometimes that causes the HVAC to stop working. So home warranty is there. It's kind of like, if you say you're living in an apartment and something don't work, you just call the leasing office, right? That's the same concept with home warranty. Something doesn't work in your house, you call them and they come up and they fix it. You pay $75, which is the deductible, whatever, and then you keep it going. So I always suggest that you get a home warranty your first year. In today's market, we haven't been able to negotiate that in, but the market, when it settles down, a lot of times we can ask for closing costs from the seller, but also we'll ask for a home warranty paid for by the seller, okay? And hasn't happened a lot in this market, but it looks like we're going back to it now.
When it comes to working with home warranty companies, say you send them out of business.
Yeah, so that great, awesome. So if you now go and order a home warranty by yourself, and be honest with you, they're a little slimy. So their job is to not try to make a claim payment. When you order a home, and if you order a home warranty, they normally give you a 30-day window, so you can't do any claims for 30 days. Right? When you buy a home warranty tied to a purchase, you have coverage day one. Like literally you close on a house, you go to the house and now the HVAC don't work, you call them, it's covered. 2, because your agent is involved. If they now say, oh, we're not going to cover that because blah, 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 the first call is to your agent. I then call my home warranty rep and go, are you serious? Yeah, you guys are going to take care of this. And guess what? Even if they could get away with not taking care of it, they're going to take care of it. Why? We send them so much business. If they don't take care of us real estate agents and our clients, they'll start losing business. So, I know a lot of you are like, home warranties suck. I've had a bad experience. I'm gonna tell you right now, if you were my client and they sucked, you had a bad experience, and you didn't call me, that's on you. But if you call me, your experience would be different. Some of my clients literally have whole HVAC systems replaced. And originally they were like, we're not gonna do this because there was rust on the HVAC. I don't care. And they end up giving them a whole HVAC system because they couldn't fix it. Okay, so great question. So in summary, we're almost at 12. So I want to honor your time. If you're currently renting, get your finances ready, right? And then when you do, and you get the pre-approval, do not go and open a new card. Do not co-sign for a lease for your kid. Don't go and get a trade in your leased car to another car, right? Huh?
Not even a hamburger.
Man, you better look, if you're gonna go and buy a hamburger, you better use your debit card. Don't,
Not even credit.
but don't, yeah, you can do that, but use the debit card, not your credit card, right? So in other words, don't add more credit. Don't go and open your credit. Don't close a credit card. Listen, if they ask whatever it is that you do in finance with your finances and they say, I need your social security number, that's a no, because that means they get ready to pull your credit, right? And so really all that information is important because if you don't protect your credit score during the process, you could become ineligible to buy. And instead of you moving into your house, you will be moving into your car. You understand? And we don't want you living in the car. We want to make sure you can get into a house. So we have to make sure we protect that. And then research and select your dream team. Once you do that, you'll get your vendors, you'll get pre-approved. We'll start the process. Remember, if they say, no, you can't get pre-approved right now, it's a no for now, but they'll give you a plan of what to do. And they go to search to closing with an awesome realtor and you get the keys to your house. And then you move in and start creating memories in your new home. It's not hard, guys. The hardest part is making the decision that you want to be a homeowner and then selecting your team. And when you select your dream team, they'll make your process much easier and they'll walk you through each step of it. Okay? It's very simple. It's not really hard. And we got you. And so, let me stop this chair. So I kind of covered the steps to home buying. We've covered, you know, the different types of loans. We've talked about why should you rent and why should you buy. Here's my information if you want to get in touch with me. That's my glamour shot, guys. As you can tell, don't look like that today. I'm going to open up some Q&A. It's 12 o'clock, but if you have any other questions, click them up. We'll just start some Q&A and keep it going. If you see this later on, it's no longer a live feed. Feel free to shoot me a DM with your question. Feel free to give me a call. I have an open house today. Check my Facebook page. Feel free to come through there. And we have an open house tomorrow as well. So if you want to come by, stop in, say hi, talk a little bit about what your goals are quickly, come and see me. Clay?
Yes.
What does financing look like for pre-sale homes? Do you offer that
For-
pre-sale homes, like new construction?
Right.
still being developed?
So we do new construction loans. Most new construction in Atlanta is you're buying from a builder. And so we're essentially doing the permanent financing. If you're buying a lot and doing a custom build, you're doing a construction loan and we don't do construction loans.
Okay.
But most construction in Atlanta is done through like new subdivisions and whatnot.
So if someone's building a new subdivision,
Mhm.
you can finance that.
Right, because you can choose your lender. You don't have to use the builder's lender.
Okay.
So
I'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
any other questions? You seen anything online, Matt? Any questions from the audience?
The World Wide Web, the World Wide Web. Let me see. All right. All right, no questions so far. Any questions here in the audience?
I think I answered all my questions. Thank you so much.
Okay, awesome. I think we nailed it.
I think we're good.
I think
So,
we're good. So, oh my gosh, and we're so on time too.
That's awesome.
That's impressive. Normally I run out of time, so this is amazing. So, hey guys, thank you so much for logging on, for listening to this. Let me just give you some other numbers too. You know, 90% of millionaires built their wealth because of real estate and via real estate. And so I am a true believer that real estate should be a vehicle for wealth. And it really starts with your first house. If you buy your first home, it really gets you started. And also, if you have a family, when they know that this is the place that they can always call home until you sell it, there's something about having that foundation and teaching your kids that, yes, they can also be homeowners. I teach fair housing, and let's just be real, as a minority, the percentages are really crazy on African Americans and minorities and their home ownership numbers. And we've had fair housing in place to make sure that everybody has the same rights to be able to purchase a home and purchase land, but we still haven't moved the needle. And it really starts with having a conversation of why is that happening? And it starts with exactly that. You need to know how and what to do and how to get into a home. So it starts with one simple phone call to a real estate agent that connects you with a great lender. And after that, it's easy going. So let's start the conversation of seeing how you can start building wealth for yourself. And instead of leaving debt for your family, hopefully you're leaving a legacy and you're leaving some real estate for your family as you transition and pass on. And that's my big goal here. So if you ever want to have us come in and host a home buyer seminar to your people at your church, at the job, we do that we have some friends in HR. We've done those. We're going to start doing again. We just want to get the word out. And honestly, guys, you don't have to use me. If you have an amazing real estate agent that's a friend of yours and they're experienced, use them. Call them. I just want you to become a homeowner. I want you to start building wealth via real estate. That's my only goal. But if you ever need anything, you have some questions, feel free to reach out to us.
I have 2 questions.
Oh, we have a question. All right, I'm going to shut that down and then definitely let me jump in the question here. Because
Yeah, it's probably